I have a confession. I was addicted to social media, to scrolling, and it's kind of weird because I didn't even realize it was happening. Because I was the guy who hated social media. You know, I like to think that I saw through all of it, but I still fell into addiction. And I became addicted because I fell into a very specific trap that people don't really talk about. Let me explain. You know, I was one of those that was so anti-social media when I was younger. I knew and understood that it's a space of low vibration that leeches off your life energy in exchange for cheap, meaningless entertainment. You know, even back in the Musical.ly days or when TikTok was fresh and new, the kid version of me would see through all of the BS and I just steered far away from it all. And bro, I'm trying so hard to remember how exactly I got into social media, and I want to be able to tell you the event and the day for the sake of storytelling, but I just genuinely can't remember, like, bro, how did I get here? And maybe you remember the day where you first downloaded social media, you know, the day your brain was flooded with the dopamine of the scroll. But maybe you are like me and in real life you're just sitting here like, how did I get here? But I think it's quite fitting actually, because it just sums up doom scrolling perfectly. You kind of just get lured into the cave one day. You know, at one point you understood that the cave is dark, the cave is dangerous, and you know that it isn't good for you. But over time you just move on autopilot. I feel like you just start turning up to scroll here and there and you just get deeper and deeper. You know, maybe you start small, you're scrolling for 20 minutes a day, but then that becomes 30 minutes, then 40, into an hour, 2 hours or more. And eventually you are genuinely scrolling for like 4 hours a day, like 5-6 hours a day. And occasionally you just snap out of the trance and realize like, how did I get here? But regardless, there was just one thing that really did a lot of the damage for me, that had me crawling on all fours deeper and deeper into that algorithm. And that is what I'm calling productive procrastination, or the illusion of learning. And you know, this is the trap in which you get tricked into believing that the algorithm is teaching you something. Because when I was deep in my scrolling bag, I used to watch content about history, philosophy, science, you know, semi-productive reels that would pop up on my feed occasionally. And I feel like this is what made scrolling just so dangerous. And just hear me out on this one, because I didn't feel like I was wasting time. I felt like I was improving. I felt like I was learning about the world, about people, psychology. I felt like I was becoming smarter just by sitting there and scrolling. And I feel like this is the trap, because now I'm scrolling and my anticipation is through the flipping roof. You know, one video I could be learning about the crazy work schedule of Nvidia CEO. You know, the next I'm watching a brain rot, a Gartha nonsense or whatever, then boom, I'm learning some ultra obscure fact about ancient Mesopotamia. Then I get a Joe Rogan clip where they're talking about some monster they found in the Amazon rainforest. And it's the sprinkles of fake productivity, the spontaneous occurrence of education, is what actually makes scrolling so much worse. Because now I'm really playing the slot machine. Now I have such a diverse and esoteric timeline. I have such a diverse feed that I could literally be seeing anything from nature to physics, brain rot to psychology. And it's in this state of anticipation. You know, you don't know whether the next video is going to be something genuinely interesting, something funny, something educational, or just complete nonsense. And that unpredictability is what keeps people hooked. It's what kept me hooked. You know, it's kind of why some people get addicted to dysfunctional romantic relationships, you know, the highs and lows. This unpredictability is what hooks people, it's what keeps people addicted. And it's the same thing with scrolling. You are literally playing slot machine. You know, you pull the lever, you scroll, and sometimes you get nothing, but sometimes you might get a little hit. And every now and then you hit on something that feels valuable. You land on that one good Instagram reel, and this good video is fuel that justifies your next 20 shorts or Instagram reels, whatever you call them. And so now your brain is just constantly chasing that next hit, and because it's random, because it's inconsistent, your dopamine spikes even higher. You know, if it was all brain rot, you get bored, and if it was all education, you'd probably also get bored. But it's the mix, it's the chaos, the randomness, that's what keeps you locked in. Interdimensional cable ass feed, because now every scroll feels like it might be worth it. And that's what makes scrolling so dangerous. You're not wasting time consciously necessarily. Well, you are a bit, but it's almost like you're being pulled in against your will, almost subconsciously. And that is what real addiction actually looks like, bro. Like, it took me long enough to realize that I was actually addicted for real. Like, this shit is really a drug. Like, genuinely, I'm not even exaggerating here. This is a real drug. You know, I wasn't choosing to stay. I was literally just waiting around for something. And I'll be sitting there for an hour before I could even realize that I was in a trance, like a literal trance, bro. Because my ooga booga brain was stuck in that loop of of anticipation and reward. Well, scrolling is quite literally like somebody holding up one of those cartoon pocket watches, those cartoon pendulums, and swinging it in front of your eyes and hypnotizing you. And what I'm saying is, people don't talk about how those couple useful or productive shorts, they are literally the cherry on top. They add some serious fuel to your addiction, to your scroll. I guess the silver lining is that what I'm understanding now is there actually is a solution to this, a solution to the drug that is scrolling, a solution to the illusion of learning. And it sounds simple, it sounds basic, but you just have to unplug, bro. You literally just have to detach from everything. Delete the apps from your phone, delete your IG account if you have to, go outside, touch grass, read books, watch a movie, watch the full 2 hours, talk to people, go outside and see the world with your own 2 eyes. Just completely detach from the negative, detach from scrolling completely. And people may have their gripes with quitting things cold turkey, but for me, scrolling, it feels like an exception to this rule. The key to actually quitting for good is having almost faith in the universe, in God, whatever you believe in. Faith that living life the way humans were actually meant to is the way. But you can actually never relapse if you just accept deep within yourself that you are going to learn all the things in your life without having to scroll. Because if you're really interested enough, you will read that book about psychology instead of watching the clips of the Joe Rogan podcast or whatever. If you were actually meant to learn about the Amazon rainforest, then you will find a way, and that is without the algorithm forcing the occasional short down your throat. Pause. Now that you're not scrolling, now that you are chronically offline, you can actually approach education, you can approach learning with true agency. You can learn what you want to learn, you can decide what you want to pursue, and you don't have to be an academic, you don't have to be a scholar, because that's not what I'm saying. The point is that now you can actually lean into what naturally interests you. You can have that free time, that present time to sit down with a book and heal your attention span, to feed your brain with some actual good food. And the key point with the digital detox or quitting social media is to understand and to have faith that you're not actually missing out on anything, because you actually aren't missing out. When you become chronically offline, you become more intuitive and you learn to see unique angles and perspectives that you wouldn't have seen if you were being just spoon-fed everything by the almighty algorithm. Because when you're just constantly consuming, you don't actually stop to think. It's almost like you stop thinking for yourself. Like even me, when I was deep in my scrolling era, I didn't actually realize how much of my own thoughts weren't truly mine. They were just sort of fragments of things that I've seen, clips, opinions, hot takes, and recycled ideas. But it was when I stepped away from all of that, it was only then that I could finally get silence. And this is where your real life can actually resume. Quitting social media, it didn't make me lose anything, bro. It gave me my life back. It gave me my time, my focus, attention, and curiosity. And I have the ability to sit down and think, think in the way that we as humans are designed to do. And most importantly, it gave me my control back. Because when you really break it all down, do you want to be controlled by the algorithm? Or do you want genuine agency? Do you want actual free will? And if you've watched this far, then you probably already know the answer for yourself. But yeah, that's why I quit social media. And honestly, I think you should too.